Chapter 14. Insights for Guiding Children by Nelda Sheets. Our families are so important to us that ordinary politicians can be elected to the highest offices by proclaiming that they are for family values. The way we think about what we want for our country has been changed by great leaders who reminded us that there can be a better world for our children by changing our laws and our concepts. An example is Dr. Martin Luther King, who made people of all races think with our hearts when he proclaimed, "I have a dream." His dream was for his children to live in a world free of racial discrimination, where all people have equal opportunities. Nelson Mandela made a gigantic change for all African families because he wanted a better world for his daughter. He wrote to her, "There are few misfortunes in this world you cannot turn into personal triumph if you have an iron will and necessary skill." In a discussion about how great people have made the world better, we should remember that Jose Silva created the Silva method of self-mind control because he, too, had a dream of providing inner skills for his family of 10 children so that they could reach their potential in school and in life. We invited Jose to come to Amarillo to teach his method to 125 artists who belong to the Area Arts Association. We wanted to get a handle on the creative levels so we could become better artists. We learned in the first 4 hours that what he was teaching us was much more than that. We could learn to manage stress, use visualization for better memory and better health, and to achieve our goals, and even develop our intuition for awareness of the universe. We practiced caseworking, using subjective communication to project our minds to problems, and then verifying that we were accurate in the information we detected. We wanted that for our family members, too. My son Steve was 16, and my daughter Dana was 14 at the time. We talked to Jose and convinced him to come back to Amarillo for an additional class for our family members. From there, the Silva system spread around the world. What do you want for your family? Now would be a good time to stop and make a list. Here is a list of what I want for my family, now and for the rest of their lives. 1. Stress management. 2. Mental skills for fitness and wellness. 3. Creative problem-solving skills for all areas of life. 4. Creative expression skills in art as well as appreciation of the arts. 5. An education that leads to a fulfilling career and lifestyle. 6. Social and family values that bring a sense of well-being and also relationship skills. 7. A well-developed intuition that will bring about lucky and correct decisions. 8. A spiritual connection with higher intelligence, as well as a connection with all life on planet Earth. 9. A belief in their own potential and the mental tools to achieve it. Now let me tell you how the Silva techniques have helped our family achieve all of that and more. Stress management. When we ask kids what causes stress for them, they answer. 1. When parents are stressed out and cranky with us, yell at us, or argue with each other. For some children, it is even worse, when the parent's stress leads to child abuse. 2. When no one listens to us. 3. When kids at school make fun of me or pick on me. 4. Beginning to date. 5. Divorce. 6. Problems of the world. A study of Connecticut High scholars by Dr. Alexander Toller, as reported in the New York Times, showed that there is a big difference in what parents and teachers think causes teenagers stress, and what the high scholars themselves say is stressful. Teenagers listed not getting into the college they wanted, having to go to summer school, and the breakup of a romance. Dr. Taylor says, what would help most is for parents and teachers to psychically connect with teenagers and see their problems and their world in the eyes of the child. Jose Silva provided a very effective technique for doing this. Subjective communication, what he said, is the most valuable technique in the course. At the end of the course, we practice projecting our mind to detect information about illnesses and injuries to other people, and verify that we are accurate in our detection. Once you learn to do that, you can learn through practice to use your mind to detect information about any kind of problem, if it is necessary and beneficial for humanity. As we say in the course, here is an example. When my son was 17, he became moody and seemed to be experiencing stress. When asked about what was bothering him, he told me nothing and obviously didn't want to discuss it. I used subjective communication to get a sense of what I could do to help. I went to my level and imagined that he was there in front of me. Then I put his head on. That is, I imagined superimposing his head over mine as if I were putting on a helmet. While I had his head on, I had thoughts that he was bothered by his dad and me taking for granted that he would soon be leaving for college. He was concerned about possibly being drafted for military service, and he was also concerned about whether he should serve his country before he went to college. I can remember thinking at the time that these thoughts that I was having could not be right. But at the same time, I had a feeling inside that this was for real. After dinner that night, I mentioned to him that I noticed that some of his classmates were volunteering for service, and that it must be a very important decision to make. I asked if he had ever thought of that. I wasn't surprised when he confirmed that he had. I told him that I respected his decision, but I believed that he could get his college education first, then volunteer. By doing that, he would be more mature and would make a much better soldier. I breathed a big sigh of relief when he said that he thought I was right. In their book Teenage Suicide, authors Sandra and Dr. Gary Rosenberg say that what teenagers need most is to feel that there is a meaningful life to look forward to when they become adults. Listen carefully to their statement. Not being able to cope with stress and pain is a key factor in teenage suicide. For the sake of your family, learn and practice relaxation skills. And learn to use your intuition subjective communication to help you better understand what other members of your family are experiencing, so that you can help them cope and relieve some of the stress. Mental skills for wellness and fitness. When my grandson Travis was 5, I spent a week babysitting him while his parents vacationed. I gave him a plastic baseball bat and ball. We played a lot of ball that week, and I had a built-in opportunity to teach him that he could use his magic mind to mentally picture himself hitting the ball just right. Throughout his school years, we occasionally talked about how he could use his magic mind in sports, especially baseball. He became a star player on his high school team. In fact, in his senior year, his high school team won the state championship in Texas, and he was named one of the most valuable players. When he was interviewed after the championship game, he was asked, "Who taught you to play baseball, your dad?" He answered, "No, it was my grandmother." As you can imagine, there were a lot of surprised people, especially a very proud grandmother. My children learned how to go to their level and program to relieve pain, and to visualize injuries healing quickly and without pain. Creative problem-solving skills. I want my family to have whole-brain thinking skills for fixing problems. The mirror of the mind technique is basic for almost any situation. One of the most spirit-fulfilling experiences that I had with a child was with Donnie, a 9-year-old student with cerebral palsy. His father, a Silva graduate, wanted his son to learn to relax at will, especially so that he could stop debilitating muscle spasms that are painful and can even be fatal. Donnie's father was also eager for him to learn to use his mind to help in any way possible. I knew very little about cerebral palsy, So I went to Jose Silva for advice. His advice was simple: don't read anything about the disease. You will only read about problems of the disease, not possibilities. Use caseworking when in doubt about how to proceed. It turned out to be excellent advice, as borne out by the results that we got. Donnie did learn to relax completely at will before spasms set in, and he learned much more. One of the things that Donnie wanted to do was to learn to write. He especially wanted to write his name like the other kids. Since he couldn't even hold a pencil with his hands, I admit I was doubtful. I went to Level, as Jose had suggested, and asked what to do. At Level, I got the thought that rehearsing at Level using the mirror of the mind technique would work. And it did. Once he could hold the pencil, we mentally rehearsed writing his name. Once he had succeeded at that, he wanted me to teach him to paint. It went through my mind that this could be a real big challenge. Since he was holding his pencil straight up with his fist wrapped around it, it would be very difficult for him to mix the oils that I used in the children's art classes. Once again, I went to Level. There, I got the idea to show Donnie how to paint with watercolors. He could hold the paint brush the same way he held the pencil, and easily move the brush to the water, then to the watercolor pan, and then to the paper. It worked beautifully. Creative artistic expression and appreciation. Art is nourishment for the spirit. It expands the heart. It is the global language that everyone can speak and understand. Art teaches us to care for the planet and its inhabitants. There are several things you can do to block the creative spirit. One is to judge the work as good or bad. To avoid this, you can praise the process instead of commenting on the product. Dord Fitz, our art professor, who brought Jose Silva to Amarillo to speak to us, and then to teach us his method, told us that the difference between a painter and an artist is that a painter can have expertise with skillful drawing and painting, but the picture lacks spirit. The artist is a psychic who expresses with paint the vision in his or her mind's eye. It's a subjective experience put into an objective form. The spirit of the painting is felt by the viewer. It is the same with all art forms. When my oldest granddaughter Jill was 6, she spent a week with me at the New Mexico ranch where we lived at the time. We had a painting lesson in my studio one morning and took a break by taking a walk. As we walked down the tree-lined lane westward, there was a wonderful view of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. Both of us admired the wild flowers and the view of the pretty meadows in the foreground, a view of the town of Raton in the middle ground, and those great snow-capped peaks in the background. Then Jill asked Mimi, "Where is God? Is he in the sky?" I answered, "Jill, I find God everywhere. When I look at your sweet face, I see God. When I look at these pretty flowers, I see God." When she looked a little puzzled, I suggested that we find a seat on the log and go to our level and imagine going inside the flower to a very deep level where the spirit of creativity was, and feel God's energy and love within the flower. Then we connected in the same way with the trees, the cattle, and the mountains. When Jill opened her eyes, she enthusiastically proclaimed, "Oh, Mimi, now I know why everything is so beautiful. Let's go back to your studio and paint it." She painted a wonderful landscape that now hangs in my current studio to remind me of the spiritual and creative process of painting. Another creative thinking technique for solving problems is brainstorming. Jose Silva developed a variation of brainstorming he calls the Alpha Think Tank, where we all go to level together and work on problems as a group. My family worked out a problem with this technique when the kids were still in high school. I was working in my office from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., and I was teaching the Silva system several evenings a month. I depended on the kids to help me with the housework. They suggested I quit so they could be relieved of their chores. I suggested that we discuss it in an Alpha Think Tank session to find a win-win solution. During the Alpha Think Tank session, they presented their views, my husband presented his views, and I presented my views. The result? The kids decided that having me work was not only okay, but it was good for them because it gave them spending money as well as the opportunity to learn how to run a household. Kids as young as age 5 can participate in a family alpha think tank. The rules are simple. All ideas are written down. There is no judgment until all ideas are presented. It lasts as long as anyone has something to share. Ideas are judged for workable solutions, and the participants select the one that is best for everyone. Education. All of the Silva techniques are important to students and their success in the educational system. In some cases, it has been a matter of going to level in order to understand why the teachers act so awful. In other cases, it has been developing mnemonics for better test grades. In many cases, it has been learning to expect positive results from oneself. My experience with a boy named Charlie is a good example of how the creative insights and intuition at the alpha level can be beneficial to students who are having trouble in school. Charlie's grandmother called and told me that Charlie had been diagnosed as having attention deficit disorder, ADD, and wanted to know if we could help him. Teachers had told Charlie's parents that he couldn't read or concentrate for more than 15 minutes. I told her to bring him to the children's class that I was holding to see how he responded. Charlie seemed to be fascinated with what we were saying, and I was amazed at him during the first break. He was explaining what I had said during the first hour to the younger kids, and he was explaining it accurately. During class, he asked questions and joined in whenever we opened the class for a discussion. He was never unruly in any way, and he was a total delight to have in class. During the afternoon break, I asked Charlie why he didn't like to read. I was very careful in how I asked the question. I didn't want to ask, "Why can't you read?" He answered, "Have you seen the books they give us kids? They're boring." I asked what he liked to do. He said he enjoyed watching television and playing games. I asked him if he had thought about what he wanted to do when he grew up. He said that he wanted to do something with computers. The next day, after the kids had worked health cases, I asked Charlie to project himself into the future, to imagine himself working with computers and needing to read something. I asked him to tell me all the times he would need to read, and to feel the fun and excitement of learning new information by reading. When he came out of level, he simply said, "I want to read." A year later, when Charlie and his grandmother repeated the class, he proudly reported that he had an A average that year. Social and family values. Family values and social values are subjects that need our attention and consideration when we consider the things that we want for our children. Hillary Rodham Clinton says in her book, "It takes a village to raise a child." One of the families and the village's most important tasks is to help children develop those habits of self-discipline and empathy, that which we call character. It takes creative thinking parents and teachers to raise creative thinking children who will be prepared to raise the village, or as we say in the Silva class, to make the world a better place to live for those who follow. I had the privilege of working on the island of Guam with Sister Naomi Curtin and Silva consultant Dr. George DeSalle, who were involved in teaching the Silva system in the parochial school system. One of my assignments was to show the teachers how they could use the alpha level creatively in the classroom. In a 7th grade social studies class, we studied the Sioux Indians of South Dakota. I did something a little different than they were accustomed to. I had the children close their eyes, and I guided them to level. Then I asked them to imagine taking a trip to South Dakota in the year of 1860, and to imagine that they were spending the day as a guest and a friend of the Sioux Indians. I suggested that they experience the way their new friends lived. It took only 20 minutes for me to cover all of the information that their textbook chapter contained. When they came out of level, they drew pictures and wrote a record of their experiences. Then they shared verbally with each other. They loved sharing this way. Now someone was listening to them, and they loved that it was their classmates. The next day, they had another chapter to study, another culture to learn about. But they were disappointed that they were not going back to South Dakota to visit the Sioux village. But we made friends, they said. We like these people. Of course, it was the same with all of the people they read about and experienced at the inner level. It is a way of learning to care. And that's something that we can all benefit from. A well-developed intuition. Today's bookshelves are getting richer with books that tell us the importance of developing and using our intuition. Books that suggest ways for us to be safe in an unsafe world emphasize that our intuitive feelings are to be respected and followed. Studies of successful companies show that the best have intuitive leaders. When is the best age to teach your children how to be intuitive? Jose Silva said age 7 is the ideal time to begin. From ages 7 to 14, children naturally function more at the alpha level than at any other level, so it is easy to teach them. He gave us these guidelines. 1. Practice visualization. Ask your child to close eyes, roll them slightly upward, and recall and describe in detail and in full color people, things, and places. Do this for 15 minutes, once a week every Sunday, for instance. 2. Practice imagination. With eyes closed, turn slightly upward. Ask your child to alter objects or scenes they have seen. For instance, if they have seen a person wearing a green sweater, then mentally change the color to red. Practice visualization for 3 Sundays and imagination for 1, until the child is 8 years old. Then alternate practice visualization every other Sunday until the child is 9. At age 10, practice visualization once a month and imagination 3 times a month. 3. At age 8, they have practiced visualization for a year. If the parents are Silva graduates, they can now present health cases, which are the easiest kind of cases to do. Later you can give business, political, personal, or social problems as cases for them to work. When working cases, the psychic first mentally detects what the problem is. Then after they confirm that they are accurate in what they detected, they can mentally correct the problems. 4. It is best not to refer to psychic ability or clairvoyance. Children do not like to be considered different from their peers. But all children enjoy guessing, so just have them guess. 5. When a child guesses wrong, do not tell them that they are wrong. Simply move forward and encourage successes. 6. When they guess right, have them review the feeling associated with the correct guess. Page spiritual connections with higher intelligence and all life entering level and working cases is how we connect with our spiritual evolution. There are many views of what being spiritual entails. Mother Teresa told us that spirituality is not preaching about God, it is doing that which is godly. Jose Silva said the same thing in the course when he advised us to continue to strive to take part in constructive and creative activities to make the world a better place to live, so that when we move on, we shall have left behind a better world for those who follow. UN Secretary General U Thant said he believed that spirituality will be the next state of evolution and will ultimately bring harmony to individuals and society. Jose Silva long referred to this as the second phase of human evolution. Because of the world's problems, There is an urgency for more parents, teachers, and concerned citizens to encourage the inclusion of consciousness education in the school curriculum, to encourage the artist within, to express the poet's language of sentiment, the mystical language of a spiritual connection. Young people today lament that they missed the great causes of the 1960s civil rights, peace, the women's movement. Yet today there is a cause that is even greater and more significant to humanity, spiritual development, so that all people can experience the reality that the similarities that bind us in the spiritual dimension are far more important than the superficial differences we see at the outer level. Awareness of one's potential. There is no greater gift for you to give your children than the realization that with the use of their creative mind, they can do anything they want. Today's children have been born into the worst of times and the best of times. It's the worst of times because of the problems that still plague humanity: war, disease, drugs, bigotry, pollution of the planet, and crime, including the very worst crimes, those committed against children. It's also the best of times, though, because of the evolution of human awareness and consciousness. Humanity's consciousness has been raised since the 1960s. Then, there were many people who wanted the world to be a better place. Today, the average person realizes that we are not just physical beings, but we are also spiritual beings. We understand that the spiritual tools that we can use to improve conditions include visualization, imagination, psychic ability, and prophecy. You are so fortunate to be living in a time like this when you can give your children and grandchildren such a wonderful gift. That fact that you are reading this book and developing your own ability in the spiritual dimension is evidence that you want the best for your biological family, and also for your greater family of humanity on this planet. Congratulations, and thank you for joining the millions of people who are already taking the first steps into the second phase of human evolution. Nelda Sheets was the first person other than Jose Silva to start teaching the Silva system. She has taught numerous Silva courses to children and to families. She has also trained instructors to teach both the basic and advanced courses.